Happy Thursday, beautiful people. This is Al.Williams for real. If you've never seen our show before, I'm your host and presenter with the link agency of I Got Something to Say. So let's get right on into it.
For real here, and as you know, I got something to say. You might like it, you might love it, you might even hate it, but anything you stand by the end. So just comment below. If you don't know me already, I'm Al.Williams for real here, and as you know,
So welcome to the show. Before we get into Black O-Ticks, you know we have to tell you about the I Got Something to Say experience. To be a part of the experience is worth everything because you choose the topics that are going on in the show. So all you have to do is either follow my personal Instagram, which is right here, or you can follow the Link Agency Instagram, which is right here as well. And then you can actually vote on the topics that we're going to talk about on the show. And if you want to catch up on all the things that we talk about on I Got Something to Say, it's very easy. Go to our YouTube channel and subscribe. Hit the notification bell so you can be always in the know of what's going on the show. And if you like to have fun and also like to travel like I do, you can follow us on our Facebook channel, and you can also have a little fun over there because we have a little fun doing it.
Black O-Ticks, the activity associated with the governance of African American lives and or when our culture is entangled in political propaganda with a negative outcome.
So let's get right on into Black O-Ticks. And you know how this goes. You know I love to play a game. And so this is called Do You Remember? If you've never played before, it's very easy. Do you remember when the Haitians came over and tried to get some assistance from America as an asylum because of the earthquakes and the assassination of their president? Well, America didn't take that too well. They actually decided to whip them on horses and also verbally abuse them and just unfortunately embarrass them while they were also take a toll and an outcry to the Biden administration. And the only thing the Biden administration said that they were against was this.
The secretary also conveyed to civil rights leaders earlier this morning that we would no longer be using horses
Isn't
in
this
Del
crazy?
Rio.
Next story. Let's go. Do you remember just a few months ago that the Trump administration and all his friends were saying that the election was a fraud and people were cheating? Well, they decided to boost these voting laws to try to keep 1.7% of black people not to vote. The reason why is because they lost by 1.4% of black people voting. So, you know, like the ID law and all these other things. Well, here in Texas, they decided to have a little sit down and they asked some of the leaders, do they feel that these laws are discriminatory? Well, this is what they say.
Are voter ID laws racist? Professor Tolson.
Thank you for that question. So it depends. The federal district court that first resolved the constitutionality of Texas's voter ID law.
Okay, so your view is voter ID laws are racist. How about you, Mr. Yang?
I agree with Professor Tolson. Voter ID laws can be racist.
Okay, that's
another
two.
context.
Mr. Science?
There are some voter ID laws that are racially discriminatory in intent.
How about in practice? In intent, fine, you say there's some racist with a malevolent intent lurking in the back of their mind. But let's just talk about it as a practical matter. When I go to vote, they ask me for my ID. I pull out my ID, I show it to them, I vote. Is that racist?
If the law that requires you to do that was motivated by racially discriminatory intent
What about the
under
effect?
our
Set
Constitution.
Set aside intent. I'm asking about the effect.
Yes, in effect, I think that there are discriminatory effects from a number of voter IDs.
Right across the country in North Carolina, the judges are thinking the exact same thing, that these voter ID laws are really discriminatory against black and brown people. Really just black people. That's exactly what you remember back in the 70s and 80s, well, in the 99s, 2000s. Anyway, you remember when black people were being arrested for non-violent crimes like selling marijuana and now marijuana is legal? Well, in California, they're deciding to let go 60,000 prisoners in California for marijuana charges that are non-violent. 60,000. Can you imagine if America released people that they're legalizing drugs for? Well, nonetheless, we're going to go right on to the next story because I can go on. Well, speaking of California, let's do a little mixer. You know I love these. So, do you remember, and a sounds about white? Let's mix them together. Do you remember, or have you ever heard of Manhattan Beach? Well, it's a pretty old beach. Well, the black people in the neighborhood call it Bruce Beach. You know why? Because it was previously owned by Willa and Charles Bruce. Yes, they were a black couple in California that the land was just stolen by the formerly known as Ku Klux Klan, currently known as the white supremacists of America. Well, the judges ordered that their land be returned with the $714 million that goes with that land. It's crazy, you guys. I went around the United States real fast. Like, we went and took a whole road trip, like North Carolina, Texas, and California. Okay, so let's go into Oregon. And if you ever like to travel, like I do, you can always book through Chocolate Travelers. Use one of our agents in our group. You can group travel, business travel, or do a personal trip. Always hit us up. It's very easy at 469-718-9183. Yeah, do that. Anyway, in Oregon, speaking of travel, teachers up there are doing blackface. And guess why? Not because they're trying to prove something. They just don't want to take the vaccine. And they were pretending to be Rosa Parks. Out of all the black faces to be, I guess Rosa Parks is a cute blackface. And she did do a lot for us. But she ain't did nothing for you. Take that face off.